I want to start by saying I am not a superstitious person. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. Sunny, dry, bright, the kind of place where nothing feels hidden because there are no shadows long enough to hide anything. I studied accounting in college. I am the person at the dinner table who rolls their eyes at ghost stories. I say all this because I need you to understand that what I am about to tell you did not come from an overactive imagination or a fear of the dark. It came from 3 nights in a cabin on the Oregon coast that I will never be able to fully explain. It was October 2 years ago. My girlfriend at the time, Nadia, had been pushing for a trip up the coast for months. She wanted something remote, something quiet, somewhere we could actually disconnect. She found the listing on Airbnb, a small cabin about 40 minutes south of Cannon Beach, sitting on a bluff overlooking the Pacific. The photos were stunning. Weathered wood exterior, big windows facing the ocean, a stone fireplace inside. The host had a 5-star rating with over 60 reviews. Every single one said the same thing: peaceful, beautiful, perfect getaway. We booked it for 3 nights. We should have read the reviews more carefully. We arrived on a Friday evening just as the sun was going down over the water. The drive up had been beautiful, winding coastal highway, pine trees on one side and the ocean dropping away on the other. By the time we pulled up to the cabin, I was already relaxed. Whatever stress I'd carried up from Phoenix dissolved the moment I stepped out of the car and heard the waves below. The host, a woman named Patricia who lived about 2 miles away, had left a lockbox with the key. She'd texted us the code and a short welcome message. Inside, the cabin was exactly as advertised. Exposed wooden beams, a worn leather couch facing the fireplace, a small kitchen with a window that looked straight out to sea. Nadia immediately started taking photos. I started a fire. For the first few hours, everything was perfect. We made dinner, opened a bottle of wine, watched the fog roll in off the water as the last of the light disappeared. By 10 o'clock, we were both tired from the drive and decided to turn in early. The bedroom was at the back of the cabin, away from the ocean view, with a single window facing the tree line. There was a large antique mirror on the wall opposite the bed, the kind with a heavy dark wood frame and slightly aged glass that gives reflections a faint amber tint. I remember thinking it was an odd place for a mirror that large. Most people don't put a mirror directly across from where they sleep. I didn't think about it again. I turned off the light and went to sleep. I woke up at 2:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone immediately. I wasn't sure what had woken me. No sound I could identify. No movement from Nadia, who was still asleep beside me. Just a sudden, complete alertness. The kind that feels less like waking up and more like being switched on. The cabin was dark and quiet except for the sound of the ocean and the occasional creak of the wood in the wind. I lay there for a moment, deciding it was nothing, and then I looked at the mirror. There was something wrong with the reflection. Now I want to be careful here because I know how this sounds, but the reflection in that mirror was not quite right. The room looked correct. The bed, the furniture, the window behind me, but the quality of the light was different. In the room itself, it was completely dark. In the mirror, there was a faint, sourceless gray light, just enough to see by. Like the mirror was reflecting a different version of the room at a different time of day. I stared at it for a long moment, told myself it was the moonlight coming through the window at an angle, told myself mirrors do strange things in the dark, closed my eyes, went back to sleep. The next morning, I didn't mention it to Nadia. The second night was worse. We'd spent the day walking the beach below the bluff, driving into Cannon Beach for lunch, genuinely having a good time. By the time we got back to the cabin that evening, I had almost completely forgotten about the mirror. We went to bed around 11. I fell asleep quickly and woke up again at 2:17 a.m. Exact same time. I checked immediately because something felt deliberate about it. The same complete sudden alertness. The same dark, quiet cabin. The same sound of the ocean. I looked at the mirror before I even fully understood why. The gray light was there again, but this time something else was different. In the reflection, the bedroom door, which I had closed before bed, was open, just slightly, a few inches. I could see the darkness of the hallway beyond it in the mirror's reflection. I turned around slowly and looked at the actual door. It was closed. I lay completely still for a long time. I told myself the mirror's angle was playing tricks, that it was reflecting a slightly different geometry of the room. I am an accountant. I believe in things that can be measured and explained. I ran through every rational explanation I could think of. Then I heard it. A sound from the other side of that closed door. Not loud, not dramatic, just a very quiet, very slow sound, like something being dragged across the wooden floor of the hallway, moving away from the bedroom, toward the front of the cabin. I got up, I checked the hallway, I checked every room. Nothing. No open windows, no animals, no explanation. I didn't sleep again that night. In the morning, I pulled up the Airbnb listing on my phone and read through all 62 reviews slowly and carefully. And buried in there, between all the glowing recommendations about the view and the fireplace and the peaceful atmosphere, were 3 reviews that stopped me cold. One from 18 months ago, beautiful location, but we had a strange experience the second night, hard to describe, wouldn't stay again. One from 2 years ago, lovely cabin, but something felt off the whole time, slept with the lights on, host was lovely and responsive. And one from 3 years ago that had been responded to by Patricia and then apparently partially deleted. Only the first line remained visible. Do not book this cabin if you are sensitive to. The rest was gone. I showed Nadia. She wanted to leave immediately. I said we had one more night and I wanted to understand what was happening. She agreed to stay but asked me to cover the mirror. I took it off the wall and put it face down on the floor of the closet. That third night I woke up at 2:17 a.m. again. The room was dark and quiet. The mirror was in the closet. The door was closed. And from inside the closet came the sound of the mirror slowly sliding across the floor, moving on its own, until it stopped. We left before sunrise. I have never contacted Patricia to ask about the history of that cabin. I have thought about it many times, but I think I already know that some answers make things worse, not better, and I have slept with the lights on every night since. Everyone tells you New Orleans is haunted before you go. They say it like it's a selling point, like the ghosts are part of the charm, part of the experience, something to mention alongside the beignets and the jazz clubs and the above-ground cemeteries. People laugh about it. Take haunted walking tour. Buy ghost-themed cocktails in plastic cups on Bourbon Street. I was one of those people, right up until I wasn't. I went to New Orleans 2 years ago for Mardi Gras with 2 friends from college, Marcus and Delia. We've been planning the trip for almost a year. Hotels anywhere near the French Quarter were either completely booked or charging 3 times the normal rate, so Delia found us an Airbnb apartment on a side street just off Bourbon. Second floor of an old Creole townhouse, exposed brick walls, iron balcony overlooking the street below. It looked incredible in the photos. Historic, atmospheric, exactly the kind of place you want to stay in New Orleans. The host's name was listed as Claude. His profile had no photo and only 4 reviews, all of which were from the same month 2 years prior, and all of which said variations of the same thing: great location, unique property, memorable stay. No details, no personality, just those 3 phrases repeated 4 times by 4 different accounts. We should have noticed how strange that was. We didn't. We arrived Tuesday afternoon, 2 days before Mardi Gras. The apartment was on the 2nd floor, accessible via a narrow staircase on the side of the building. The key was in a lockbox. Inside, the apartment was beautiful in the way very old things are beautiful: high ceilings, plaster walls with hairline cracks running through them, dark hardwood floors that shifted and groaned under every step. The balcony looked directly down onto the street below, where the crowds were already starting to gather. Marcus immediately claimed the master bedroom. Delia took the smaller room. I got the pull-out couch in the main living area, which I genuinely didn't mind. It faced the balcony doors, and I could hear the music from the street below. The first night was fine. We went out, came back late, fell asleep quickly. The second night was when it started. I woke up somewhere around 3 a.m. The street below had finally gone quiet, unusual for New Orleans, but it was a Tuesday, and even that city sleeps eventually. The apartment was dark and still. I lay on the pull-out couch looking up at the ceiling and became gradually aware that I was not alone in the room. I don't mean that in a dramatic way. I mean I had the very specific and physical sensation that someone was standing near the balcony doors, not moving, just standing there, watching. I turned my head slowly. The balcony doors were closed. The room was empty, but the feeling did not go away. It sat in the room like a temperature, something you can't see but can absolutely feel. I pulled the blanket up and told myself I was half asleep and imagining things. Then I heard the voice. Very quiet, very close, coming from somewhere near the balcony. A low murmur, not words I could understand, just the rhythm and cadence of speech, like someone having a conversation just below the threshold of comprehension. One voice, then a pause, then a response, back and forth, calm and unhurried. I sat up completely. The sound stopped immediately. I checked the balcony, empty street below, nobody on the balcony, no open windows, no TV left on in another room. I sat on the couch with the lamp on until sunrise. The next morning I asked Marcus and Delia if either of them had been up in the night or had the TV on. Neither of them had. Delia said she'd slept straight through. Marcus said he'd heard something too, not voices, but footsteps on the hardwood floor moving through the living area around 3 a.m. He'd assumed it was me getting water and gone back to sleep. He had not gotten up. I had not gotten up. That afternoon, while the others were out, I did something I probably should not have done. I started looking into the history of the building. It didn't take long. New Orleans keeps meticulous historical records, and the building was old enough to have quite a file. The townhouse had been built in 1847. It had changed hands many times over the decades. In 1919, a man named Etienne Marchand had lived on the second floor, the exact apartment we were staying in, and had died there under circumstances the records described only as undetermined. His death had not been immediately discovered. He had lived alone. By the time anyone thought to check on him, several days had passed. I closed my laptop and did not share this with Marcus and Delia. Mardi Gras Day itself was loud and bright and chaotic and wonderful, and I almost convinced myself the previous nights had been nothing. We stayed out until nearly 4 a.m., came back exhausted, and I fell asleep on the pull-out couch almost immediately. I woke up at 3 a.m. The room was dark. The street outside was finally silent, and standing at the balcony doors, not outside on the balcony, not outside on the street, but inside the room between me and the doors was a shadow. Not a trick of light, not a shape that could be explained by the street lamp outside casting something through the curtains. A shadow with depth and dimension, standing completely still in a room where nothing should have been casting it. I did not move. I did not breathe. I lay completely still with my eyes open and watched it. After what felt like a very long time, it simply was not there anymore. No movement, no sound. One moment it was there, and the next moment the room was just a room again. We checked out the next morning without incident. I left a review that said, "Great location, unique property, memorable stay." I understood then why all 4 previous reviews had said exactly the same thing. Some experiences leave you with nothing else to say. I'm going to tell you something that 4 people agreed never to discuss again. 3 of them still don't know I'm telling it now. I think about that sometimes, whether they'd be angry or whether they'd be relieved that somebody finally said it out loud. I've decided I don't care either way. Some things are too heavy to carry alone indefinitely, and this is one of them. It was my 27th birthday. Late November, 3 years ago. My friends Kara, Josh, and Priya had planned the whole thing as a surprise. A weekend cabin in the Vermont woods, about 2 hours from Burlington. They showed me the listing the morning we were supposed to leave. A large A-frame cabin surrounded by pine forest, floor-to-ceiling windows on the front face looking out into the trees, a hot tub on the back deck. It looked like the kind of place you see in a magazine. The host's name was Warren. His profile said he'd been hosting since 2016, had over 100 stays, and maintained a 4.8 rating. The reviews were warm and detailed. People mentioned the peace and quiet, the beauty of the forest in different seasons, the well-stocked kitchen. One review from the previous winter mentioned that the area got heavy snow and to make sure you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle. That was the most alarming thing anyone had written. We had a 4-wheel drive. We packed for a weekend. We drove north. We arrived late Friday afternoon as the last light was going out of the sky. The forest around the cabin was dense, tall dark pines packed tightly together, the ground between them thick with shadow even at dusk. The cabin itself was beautiful. Warm inside, exactly as advertised. A fire already laid in the hearth ready to light. Warren had left a welcome note on the kitchen counter with the Wi-Fi password and a list of local restaurants 40 minutes away. At the bottom of the note, almost as an afterthought, was one additional line. Please do not go into the woods after dark. The terrain is uneven and it is easy to get disoriented. Enjoy the deck and the hot tub, but stay within the lit perimeter of the cabin at night. We read it, agreed it was reasonable, and didn't think about it again. The first night was perfect. We made dinner, lit the fire, sat in the hot tub under a sky so full of stars it didn't look real. We went to bed late, happy, warm. Nothing happened. I slept better than I had in months. Saturday was the problem. We spent the morning hiking a trail Warren had marked on a printed map he'd left with the welcome note. The forest in daylight was stunning, frost on the ground. The pines impossibly tall, complete silence, except for the sound of our footsteps and occasionally a bird somewhere far off. We hiked for about 2 hours and came back to the cabin for lunch. That afternoon, Priya and Josh went back out on the trail. Kara stayed inside to read. I sat on the front deck with a coffee, looking out at the tree line about 30 feet from the cabin. That was when I noticed the first one. Standing just inside the tree line, perfectly still. A shape dark, upright, too large to be a deer and the wrong shape entirely. It stood completely motionless between 2 pines, partially obscured by shadow, and it was facing the cabin. Facing me. I set down my coffee very carefully. I stared at it for a long moment. It did not move. I told myself it was a shadow, a trick of the afternoon light filtering through the trees, my eyes finding a pattern in the chaos of branches and trunks. Then it stepped back, one single deliberate step deeper into the trees, and it was gone. I went inside and did not tell Kara what I had seen. That night all 4 of us were on the back deck in the hot tub when Josh suddenly said, "Is someone out there?" We all looked toward the tree line at the back of the property. The deck lights lit up about 20 feet in every direction. Beyond that was complete darkness. But we could all hear it, footsteps in the dark, slow, unhurried, moving along the tree line parallel to the cabin. Not an animal too rhythmic, too deliberate, too evenly spaced. The footsteps of something walking upright. We got out of the hot tub and went inside immediately. Josh wanted to get in the car and leave. Kara said we were overreacting. Priya didn't say anything. I locked the back door and every window on the ground floor and didn't tell them what I had seen from the front deck that afternoon. We stayed up until almost 2 a.m., talking too loudly and keeping all the lights on, before exhaustion won and we went to bed. I woke up at some point in the night and I cannot tell you what time it was because my phone was dead. I don't know how. It had been at 60% battery when I went to sleep and I hadn't used it. It was simply dead. I went to the window and looked out at the front of the property. There were marks on the ground in the frost, between the tree line and the cabin, crossing the open ground, leading up to within about 10 feet of the front door and then stopping. Not animal tracks, too large, too widely spaced, the shape of something that walked upright. And carved into the bark of the pine tree closest to the cabin, not there the day before I would have noticed, was a symbol. Simple, rough, like it had been done quickly. Two vertical lines crossed by a single diagonal, over and over, repeated up the trunk of the tree as high as I could see from the window. I did not wake the others. In the morning the frost had melted and the marks were gone. The symbol on the tree was still there. I photographed it and then deleted the photo. I don't know why I deleted it. It felt like the right thing to do. We drove home Sunday morning. For the first hour nobody spoke. Then Kara said quietly, "We're not going to talk about this weekend, are we?" It wasn't a question. Josh said no. Priya nodded. I agreed. I have never looked up what that symbol means. I have never contacted Warren. I have not been back to Vermont. Some things you decide to leave in the place where they happened. You close the door on them and you drive away, and you tell yourself that distance makes them smaller. It does not.